My mother demanded I pay off her massive debt since a child's duty is to take care of their parent. When I refused, she cried to the entire family, screaming, "She's letting me suffer while she lives in luxury." But the moment my lawyer played a recording of her gambling away thousands, the room fell silent, and the look on her face when the family turned on her was absolutely priceless. I, 39 female, never thought I'd be the kind of person to cut their mom off. I always thought I'd be the one sending checks, making sure she was comfortable, maybe even helping her retire early if I could swing it. I always figured that one day I'd be in a good enough spot to pay her back for everything she did for me. But what do you do when the person who raised you turns out to be completely fake? What do you do when the loving mother becomes manipulative, toxic, and tries to destroy your life because you won't hand over tens of thousands of dollars to clean up her mess? This whole thing blew up over the last year, and it still feels surreal sometimes. Let me start from the beginning. I live in Oakland, California. I work as a UX designer for a mid-sized company. The pay is solid, the hours are flexible, and I've built a nice little life for myself. I own my condo. My car's paid off. I'm not rich, but I'm comfortable. I've always been smart with money because I had to be. My mom? Not so much. She raised me mostly on her own after my dad died when I was 12. We weren't poor, but we weren't secure either. She always had this weird thing where she needed to look wealthier than she was. Name brands. Parties she couldn't afford. Plastic plants and fake pearls. I never really understood it as a kid, but as I got older, I started noticing the red flags. Credit card debt that just appeared. Her car being repossessed twice. We had our lights cut off more than once, and every time it was someone else's fault. The bank lied. The landlord is stealing from me. Your uncle borrowed money and never paid me back. There was always a story. I moved out the day I turned 18. Got into a public college down in San Diego, worked 2 part-time jobs to make it through. I slept on couches, skipped meals, did all the things poor college kids do. And never, not once, did my mom offer help. In fact, she borrowed money from me during college. A couple hundred here, a few hundred there. I never saw any of it again. But despite all that, I didn't hold a grudge. I thought she did her best. I kept in touch. Sent flowers on her birthday. Visited during the holidays. We weren't close, but we weren't estranged either. That changed fast. It started with a phone call last June. I was in a Zoom meeting and saw that she called me 6 times in a row. Then a text, "Call me right now. It's urgent." I stepped out and called. She was sobbing. Not crying, sobbing. Full-on gasping for air, hiccuping, wailing. I thought someone died. But no. She said she was in deep trouble. That she was $42,000 in debt, about to lose her apartment, and collectors were calling, day and night. She said she had nowhere else to go. That if I didn't help, she'd be homeless by the end of the month. I was stunned. First thing I asked was, what happened? She got cagey. It's just some bills. Hospital stuff. Car repairs. You know how it is. I asked her to send me the statements. She wouldn't. She kept saying, "That's not the point. I'm your mother. You're doing well. I need you to step up. It's a child's duty to take care of their parent." That sentence. She said it over and over. Like a chant. It's a child's duty. I told her I'd think about it, but I needed to understand what I'd be paying off. She didn't like that answer. Over the next week, she blew up my phone. Texts, voicemails, Facebook messages. At one point, she even emailed me a Google Doc titled, "Why You Owe Me," with a list of things she did for me when I was a kid. Things like, washed your clothes and cooked your meals. Basic parenting stuff. Then she called my office. She left a message with reception, saying it was a family emergency and they needed to get me out of a meeting immediately. I was mortified. When I called her back and asked what the hell she was doing, she said, "You left me no choice. I'm desperate." I told her I wasn't going to send her a dime until I knew where the money was going. She hung up. A few days later, I started getting calls from relatives. My aunt. My cousins. Even my dad's sister, who I hadn't spoken to in years. They all said the same thing. "Why are you letting your mother suffer? She raised you. She gave up everything for you. She said you make 6 figures and won't give her a penny." I couldn't believe it. She told the entire family I was rich, living in luxury, and refusing to help my poor, struggling mom. They were all furious. Judgmental. Some were crying. One cousin called me cold. I tried explaining that I didn't even know what the money was for. That I had asked for proof and gotten nothing. But they didn't care. She had gotten to them first. That's when I stopped playing nice. I called a lawyer friend. Let's call him Ted. Ted's a good guy. Not flashy, but sharp. I told him the situation and asked if there was a way to protect myself legally in case she tried anything crazy. He said, "Yeah. But if you really want the full picture, we can look into her finances. Public records, collectors, debt purchases, it's not hard to trace. So we did. And what we found made my stomach turn. She had 5 credit cards, all maxed out. 2 payday loans. A reverse mortgage she took out 3 years ago that was already drained. And nearly $80,000 in gambling losses. That was the real kicker. $80,000. Las Vegas. Reno. Online casinos. Sports betting apps. She didn't even try to hide it. Her email was full of bonus offers from online gambling sites. She even had reward points at multiple casinos. The worst part? One of the voicemails to a debt collector had her laughing and saying, "Don't worry, my daughter's got it. She just doesn't know it yet." I couldn't breathe. I didn't respond to her for 2 weeks. I needed time to sit with it. To calm down. I didn't want to say something I couldn't take back. Then she sent another text. "So you're really just gonna let your mother be thrown in the street while you sit in your fancy condo drinking wine like a queen?" That was it. I called Ted and said, "Let's do it." We planned a family Zoom. I told everyone I wanted to clear the air and explain everything. They were all eager. She thought she was finally getting the public shaming of her ungrateful daughter that she'd been waiting for. She had no idea what was coming. The day of the Zoom call came. There were 11 people in the meeting. My mom, 3 aunts, 2 uncles, a few cousins, and even my mom's church friend, who I'm pretty sure was only there to act as a backup cheerleader in case things didn't go her way. Everyone logged in, cameras on, quiet. Some looked awkward. Some looked angry. My mom looked like she'd already won. She was wearing makeup, pearls, and this soft baby pink sweater like she was playing this sweet little old lady being mistreated by her selfish daughter. She smiled when I logged in. I didn't smile back. She jumped right in before I could say anything. Started crying almost immediately. She's my only child. I gave her everything. And now she's abandoned me. I'm not asking for much, just enough to breathe. Just enough to not be homeless. I've got nothing and she's got everything. And she won't help her own mother. The whole thing was a performance. Dramatic sighs. Dabbing her eyes with a tissue. Her voice breaking at the right moments. A few people nodded. A few others stared at me like they were expecting a dramatic apology. That's when I said, "Are you done?" She blinked. I don't think she expected me to be calm. Because if you are, I continued, I'd like everyone to see something. I shared my screen. And opened the first bank statement. The silence hit hard. I started talking slowly, clearly. This is a statement from one of her credit cards. Maxed out at $9,500. Look at the charges. See that one? $1,200 at Harrah's Reno. That was last month. I clicked to the next one. Here's another card. $7,000 spent in 3 weeks. Half of it at online gambling websites. The rest? Amazon orders. Beauty products. Designer bags. Not medication. Not rent. She sat frozen. I clicked to another tab. Here's the reverse mortgage contract. She took out $60,000 against her apartment 3 years ago. That money is gone. Another tab. Here's a recording of a phone call with a collections agency. Listen closely. I hit play. Her voice filled the speakers. "My daughter's doing great. She'll take care of this once I get her soft enough. I just have to push a little more." The room went still. Like people forgot how to blink. I stopped screen sharing. Before anyone lectures me about duty, or family, or being heartless, I want to make one thing clear. I was lied to. And then I was manipulated. And when I didn't roll over, she tried to destroy my name. My uncle leaned forward. "Is this real?" "Yes," I said. "I had a lawyer pull this. It's all legal. All recent. Nothing is fake. And there's more. I just didn't want to drag this out." My mom started yelling. Not crying now. Yelling. "You think you're better than me? You think you're some kind of saint because you have money now? You're not perfect. I made you. You wouldn't have that job, that apartment, that life without me." One of my cousins tried to speak, but she cut him off. "All of you. You believed her lies. She's selfish. She doesn't visit, doesn't call, and now she wants to humiliate me in front of my own family." Her face was red. Lips trembling. "You all think I'm trash now, don't you? You're all sitting there judging me like you've never made a mistake. Like none of you have debt. Like you're all better than me." She slammed her laptop shut. Her screen went black. The call was dead quiet again. My aunt finally said, "I need a drink." Another cousin muttered, "Holy shit." I didn't say anything. I just sat there and let the silence speak for itself. And then, right when I thought it was over, something else happened. One of my uncles, the one who'd been the loudest about me being cold, leaned into the camera and said, "You know, I loaned your mom $10,000 5 years ago. She said it was for a down payment on a safer apartment. Said you were helping her too and that she just needed a little more." He paused. She never paid me back. Now I'm wondering if any of what she told me was true. That opened the floodgates. Turns out, she'd borrowed money from at least 4 different relatives. Always with some sob story. Always with a promise to pay it back. Nobody had ever seen a dollar. And then came the twist I didn't see coming. One of my younger cousins, let's call her Alina, spoke up. She said, I probably shouldn't say this, but Grandma gave her money too. A lot. Everyone froze. She told Grandma it was for your student loans. That you were drowning in debt and refused to ask for help. So Grandma gave her 20 grand. Said it was a gift. She said you didn't want to know it came from her so you wouldn't feel guilty. I couldn't speak. I didn't even know how to react. Grandma died 2 years ago. I never got to ask her if it was true. And now I never will. I felt my face go hot. My hands were shaking under the desk. I didn't say another word. I just left the call. And let the whole family sit there in the mess. I didn't sleep that night. Not even a little. My brain wouldn't shut off. I kept thinking about my grandma. How Mom used her name. Lied about me. Stole from her. Manipulated her when she was already sick and vulnerable. And then had the nerve to say I was the one letting her suffer? It made my skin crawl. The next morning, I had a message from Alina. She apologized for dropping that bomb on the Zoom call. She said she didn't know the full story and felt awful. But then she added something that really threw me. She said, by the way, you should talk to your mom's landlord. I think there's more. I asked what she meant. Apparently, my mom had been living in a different apartment than the one she told everyone she was struggling to keep. She had moved to a more expensive unit across the street last year. Said she needed more light. Told everyone her old building was falling apart and unsafe. But here's the kicker, she never changed the mailing address. Bills, notices, and even debt collector letters still went to the original unit, which, by a weird stroke of luck, was now occupied by a guy Alina went to high school with. So yeah, naturally, I reached out. And what I learned next blew everything wide open. I met the new tenant at a cafe near Lake Merritt. His name was Carlos. Super chill guy, mid-30s, worked in marketing. He said he kept getting these intense collection letters in my mom's name. At first, he just wrote, return to sender, but they didn't stop. He finally contacted the property manager to say he thought someone was using the address to dodge collections. That's when they told him she still technically had the lease. The rent was being paid from a family trust account. I nearly choked on my coffee. Family trust? We don't have a family trust. I asked Carlos if he still had any of the letters. He said yes. He gave me a small stack, carefully kept in a shoebox. Inside was gold. There were 2 letters that really stood out. A settlement letter from a debt collector offering to close an account for $4,000, down from $11,000. It was postmarked 3 months ago. A legal notice from a payday loan company warning of potential small claims court action. It listed 3 payment attempts that had bounced due to account closure and insufficient funds. But here's the real bombshell. One of the letters listed a phone number, with my name on it. She gave out my number to loan officers. That's when it hit me. This wasn't just emotional manipulation. She was setting me up financially. I called Ted. He didn't even hesitate. We're filing a cease and desist immediately. And we're freezing any account that could tie back to you. A week later, my bank called me. Someone had tried to open a joint checking account with my name and social security number. The application was flagged because the other party's ID didn't match. Take a wild guess who it was. Yep, my mother. She had my social. No idea how long she'd had it. I never gave it to her, but I'm guessing she took it from my college paperwork back in the day. Ted escalated everything. He helped me lock my credit, reported the attempted fraud, and even contacted the bank's legal department to make sure she couldn't try again somewhere else. I was shaking when I got off the phone. This woman wasn't just toxic. She was dangerous. And I was done giving her chances. But then, just when I thought the situation couldn't get any more twisted, she showed up at my condo. I have a Ring camera. I wasn't home, but I saw the notification pop up while I was at the grocery store. I opened it and saw her standing there, in broad daylight, holding a tote bag and looking like she was about to start filming a Facebook Live. She knocked. Waited. Knocked again. Then she looked straight at the camera and said, I'm just here to talk. But I won't leave until you do the right thing. I called the police. They asked if she was violent. I said no, just delusional. They sent someone anyway. By the time I got back, she was gone. But the officer left a report in my mailbox confirming that she had been given a formal trespass warning. If she came back, she'd be arrested. That should have been the end. But no, there was still more. A few days later, I got a message from a number I didn't recognize. You've ruined your mother. She's ashamed. The whole community knows what you did. It was from one of her church friends. I'd never even met the woman. Apparently, my mom had gone back to her church with a new story. She told them I had planted fake evidence to humiliate her. Said I worked in tech security and used my job to create deepfakes and digital lies. I work in UX. I design buttons. But she spun it into this full-blown martyr tale. She said I was possessed by greed. That I was under the influence of Satan through technology. That I needed prayer and divine healing. So now, not only was she trying to ruin me financially and emotionally, she was turning it into spiritual warfare. A few of her church friends even started commenting weird things on my old Facebook posts. Bible verses. Guilt trip scriptures. One woman said, "A daughter who turns her back on her own mother will be cursed in her bloodline." I turned off all public comments and deleted the app. But even offline, I couldn't escape the mess. People at work started noticing I looked stressed. My boss pulled me aside and asked if I needed time off. I almost cried on the spot. I wanted to scream. I wanted to run. I wanted to burn it all down. But instead, I took a breath and called Ted. Because if she wanted war, she was going to get one. It all came to a head 2 weeks later. I got a call from a restricted number. I don't usually answer those, but something told me to pick up. It was Ted. His voice was sharp, urgent. "She's trying to file a complaint against you." My stomach dropped. "What kind of complaint?" "She told the police you stole from her. Financial elder abuse. She's saying you gained access to her bank accounts, took money, and are using fake recordings to cover your tracks." My mouth went dry. I actually had to sit down. "She's accusing me of elder abuse?" "She filed it in person. And she named you as a threat to her safety." Ted said not to panic. He was already preparing a response, and everything we had, the debt records, call logs, even the Ring camera footage, was rock solid. But he also said something that stuck with me. "This woman doesn't just want money. She wants to destroy your reputation." I nodded, even though he couldn't see me. "I'm ready," I said. And I meant it. We didn't just want to shut it down. We wanted her lies exposed. So Ted made a call to the church she attended, the one where she'd been playing the sainted mother, telling everyone I was a greedy tech demon. He asked if they had a room we could use for a family mediation, since she refused to meet at his office. Surprisingly, they agreed. She showed up, thinking she'd have the upper hand. She didn't know Ted had invited everyone. My uncles, aunts, cousins, even Carlos, the tenant from her old apartment. The pastor was there too, which I didn't expect. The room was small. Beige walls, folding chairs, bad coffee. But it felt like a courtroom. She walked in, saw me, and smirked. She thought this was her stage. And it was just not the play she thought she was starring in. Ted stood up and started calmly, like he always did. He handed out printed packets with everything. Financial records, loan documents, screenshots, transcripts. Then, without raising his voice, he said, "We've come here today not to shame anyone, but to clarify the truth." My mom sat there with her arms folded, not saying a word. He laid it all out. The gambling losses, the reverse mortgage, the fraudulent joint account attempt, the police report she filed, full of lies. Then he played the collector call again, the one where she said I'd pay everything once I was soft enough. That's when she finally snapped. She jumped up and screamed, "That's out of context." But no one flinched. Ted didn't even look up. He just said, "You can take the floor now if you'd like to explain." She looked around the room. No one met her eyes. The pastor was just staring down at the packet in his hands. She started pacing. "You're all letting her do this to me? Your own family." Then she pointed at me. She was always selfish. Even as a kid. Always thought she was better. I gave up everything for her. I sacrificed. I was a mother. What was I supposed to do when I had nothing? Just sit and rot. Her voice cracked. She was supposed to take care of me. Then came the moment that cracked everything wide open. Alina stood up. She said, "You lied to Grandma." The room froze. "You took her money. Told her it was for my student loans. She died thinking she helped. But she didn't. You used it for casinos." My mom's face shifted, like something broke inside her. She sat down. Didn't say a word. Didn't deny it. Didn't even look surprised. Just sat there quiet. Small. And for the first time since this all started, I didn't feel angry. I felt tired. No one yelled after that. No one needed to. The room stayed quiet. Some of the older relatives got up and left. One uncle shook my hand on the way out. The pastor apologized. Said he had no idea what had been going on. Promised the church wouldn't take sides, but they'd reconsider certain community narratives. My mom stayed seated. Didn't speak. Didn't cry. Just stared at the floor like it might open up and swallow her. I walked out with Ted. We didn't say much. There wasn't much left to say. In the days that followed, the fallout started. My mom withdrew her police report. Probably because Ted sent them the evidence packet with a very polite notice of defamation and fraud. My family went silent for a while. Some called to apologize. Some just distanced themselves. A few tried to play both sides, but I didn't engage. Alina texted me. Said she was proud of me. That grandma would have been proud, too. I cried in my kitchen for an hour after that. She hasn't contacted me since. Not a message. Not a voicemail. Nothing. I don't know if I'll ever speak to her again. Part of me still wonders if I should have done something different. Said something different. Shown more grace. Or less. I don't know. But I do know this. Love does not mean debt. Family does not mean submission. And being someone's child does not mean you have to carry their chaos. Sometimes I still think about that room. That moment when the mask fell. The silence. The weight of it. I don't feel good about what happened. But I don't regret it either. I protected myself. And for once in my life, no one could twist the truth. So yeah, that's what happened. I lost my mother. But I found my peace.